All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to HR Summer School. I am so glad to have you here. It's going to be a great day, if you didn't already know that. We are, goodness, at the same time, it's going to be bittersweet, I think. A lot of fun this week, a lot of great memories, a lot of great times together. And yet, today's our last day. So who knows? There might be something fun coming around the corner. I've already seen some comments this morning and some ideas, some hints of what's to come. So hang tight, stay tuned. There will be other good things ahead. For those of you that are joining us for the first time this week, I got some notes this morning. Someone said, someone just shared this with me yesterday. And like, I'm so sad I missed this. I'm like, we'll show it for the live stream. You won't miss anything else. Welcome. I'm Ben Eubanks. I'll be hosting you for today. And if you go back and watch the replays for the other parts of this week, for those of you that are curious, I've heard this again a couple of times this week. What do I do when I'm not running summer school or taking care of those kids that you just saw there? I run a company called Lighthouse Research and Advisory. We do research on the HR technology landscape to figure out what's out there, what capabilities are there, what tools and technologies can help us to solve our problems. We work with mid to large employers. So if you're curious about that stuff, feel free to ping me. Happy to have a chat about HR tech at any time. As you know, I nerd out on that stuff. I'm the author of a book. We gave away a couple of these this week. We'll give away a couple more in just a minute. I write about how to be more human at work. And so if you enjoyed kind of the style this week, that's the style that I write in. I also speak. And funny enough, I run a podcast called We're Only Human. Again, same kind of format as some of the fireside chats. And if you have seen some of the technical hiccups this week, then you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say we're only human. Give us a little bit of grace, just like we give the people we work with some grace as well. Okay. Let's get to some prizes, some awards, some things we're going to give away. Congratulations to the winners. Make sure and grab a screenshot here if your name is on there. Just email Melanie at Upstart HR and she'll help you out. Tiffany, Yvette, Shara Kay, Serena, John, Diane, Kelly, Chelsea, Jane, Zoe, Michelle, Lauren, Dawn, and Ashley. Thank you so much to all of you. And I am forgetting your name, sir. The first person to ping me this morning saying, hey, the link was broken in that email. That first gentleman, I told him I'm going to give him a yearbook as well as a thank you for helping me out. As I mentioned at the outset this week, we are doing this event in memory of our good friend, the HR community, Chris Fields, who passed away recently. And we are donating to his Memorial Scholarship Fund. And just want to let you guys know, we're matching everything for all of these yearbooks that we're giving away. We're going to double that as a donation and try to help out as many people as we can, again, right now in this tough time. We've given away a lot of amazing prizes this week. And thank you to HRCI, to our other speakers who have donated to make that happen. I really appreciate it. And I know the audience does too. All of you, just make sure we tell them thank you, as well as the sponsors, obviously. I've mentioned them a couple of times, but I'm so thankful for them for what they've done. Okay, let's jump to our first conversation for the day. Actually, before we do that, this morning, our volunteer moderator is Damona with a D, Damona Barnes. Oh, goodness gracious. She's in New Orleans. She actually reached out to me early on in the promotion for summer school to say, hey, how can we share this with our own community here locally? So Damona, thank you for doing that, but also thank you for being here today. I really appreciate you. She's the president-elect for the New Orleans SHRM chapter. She is a national member of ATD, a member of SHRM, and I appreciate you, Damona, for being here, just helping guide the conversation, being a friendly face for everybody. Not to confuse things, but this morning we're kicking off with Ramona Burrows. Ramona is the HR leader at University of Alabama, Huntsville. She's the HR leader there, and she does a lot of things in her off time. She'll mention that at the end, some other things she's doing with coaching and working with HR leaders. And so if you want to know more about the work she does, the things she's passionate about, she'll dive into that. But let's go ahead and jump in, hear from Ramona about how to deal with tough characters at work, we'll just say. Hey everyone, welcome to another HR Summer School Fireside Chat here on our very last day of summer school. I hope you've enjoyed all the great stuff this week. I'm so excited to talk to our next guest, Ramona Burrows. I've known her for a little while, a couple of years now, and actually had the chance to see her speak last year. I'm going to ask her to talk about what the things she talked about then, because I think you'll really enjoy that. Ramona, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Thanks, Ben.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. So I know you, but the audience doesn't yet know you properly. So tell them a little about yourself and what you do.
Sure. Well, it's always hard, I guess, to introduce yourself. I am a self-proclaimed HR nerd. I'm one of those weird people who um, I majored in HR in high school, believe it or not. I went to a college prep school and I knew I wanted to do this since I was 17 years old.
That is
And it's
awesome.
been a fun ride. I've done everything in HR except for benefits. For those who do that, God bless you. It's a lot. But the rest of it I've enjoyed. And I most recently I've been involved in a couple of different positions. I have had corporate oversight for workforce planning and HR strategy at a large healthcare organization in Michigan, at the University of Michigan. And then I recently am proud to say that I work at the University of Alabama, both in HR director type positions, with passion for, like I said, workforce planning, strategy, and then also passion for employee engagement and just really making sure that we have the right people at the right time and that they're enjoying what they do.
Awesome. Very fun. Not just having the right people, but making sure that they are enjoying it. I love that.
Yes, yes,
So I saw you last year. And again, the
yes,
reason I tapped you on the shoulder is I'm I'm so honored to be able to, in addition to HR Summer School and 100 other things, I'm also one of the organizers for Disrupt HR Huntsville, and
yes.
had you there as one of our speakers. And I said, Ron, you can tell me anything you want to. And you said, I want to talk about avoiding jerks at work. And I'd love for you to, can you give us like a 60-second version of your like view on that world? Like what your tolerance is for that, or how you like, I don't know. I don't care what you say about this. Anything goes, but
Sure.
talk about that a little bit, because I thought that's one of those things where you read that title and you're like, whatever she says is going to be amazing. It doesn't matter what she says. It's going to be amazing. And so I'm giving you a
Yes.
chance now to share some of that with everybody else.
Well, I hope I don't lose everyone because I'm sure that I'm the only one who's ever worked with a jerk at work, right? So
Oh
it's
gosh.
one of
Yes.
those things where HR, it really was a message for us HR folks because I think we get a little bit scared sometimes. I don't know if that's a strong word, but it's so challenging to deal with this idea of dealing with a quote unquote jerk, right? So we know how to put on our superhero capes and we know how to address a situation when there's discrimination in the workforce and if someone does something that we can categorize as serious misconduct or something like that, we know how to deal with it, right? But we also are people advocates and we want people to have freedom of speech and expression. We want people to be able to come as their whole self to work,
Mhm.
right? And so we struggle with how do you balance it with someone's definition of their whole self and their freedom of speech just really getting on everyone else's nerves? What do you do with that, right? And so, really thinking about how do we define civility, because this is certainly not a message where everyone needs to be the same. We don't want to have everyone just kind of automatons and coming to work the same way. We love diversity. We want to have freedom of expression, freedom of background and experiences, but there are some standard things around civility that HR people need to be able to deal with. I came across some statistics that are pretty familiar where they say CPP Global had a study not too long ago where they said the cost of conflict was something like $369 billion a year. And they based that on the average person only dealing with 2.5 hours of conflict a week. So I think that's probably low. If you think of
They're
any
very
type
conservative there.
right, it has to be a conservative estimate. And so when we know how to effectively deal with conflict, and when I say jerks, it's a little bit of a, teaser word, but really what I'm talking about is when you have people who, feel like they can talk to anyone any kind of way. They're that equal opportunity jerk, if you will, where they're not, we don't think it's a discrimination thing, but maybe they're a yeller or they're, sarcastic in a way that really is not respectful to people. Or maybe they're what I like to call our passive aggressive Pam or Paul, right? They hold information. They're not really that type of a team player that's there to make sure that they contribute to the team, but they're doing what may be self-promoting or self-sabotaging. Those things we have to have a language and how to define it and how to cultivate culture in our organization as HR people.
You said that a minute ago, like someone, I'm sure you and I are maybe the only ones that have ever worked with anybody like any of those personas you just laid out there. If anybody else has a story though, feel free, take a second, take 30 seconds, pop a comment in there just so that all of us know that we're not alone. If you've dealt with someone like that, like tell us about drop that story in there. Give us a couple lines on what it's like dealing with them or what that person does, because we've all all kidding aside, we've all dealt with something like that. One of the words you use, though, Pam, one of the words you use, Pam, I'm sorry, Ramona, my apologies.
It's okay.
Being a jerk, I forgot your name here.
No.
One of the words that you used was civility.
Yes.
And we don't, when you're going through the list of all the things that you want in an HR leader,
Right.
that might not be like the top of the list, but it's one of the
Right.
things that we have to enforce in the workplace, whether we
Right.
like it or not.
Right.
You know, and I think that's a really important that's an important word to we don't use that very often. You know?
Right. And we can't be afraid to define it, right? So if you have someone's work behavior, they're at the point where people don't want to come to them, where projects are taking longer than they need to take, where people are scared to work with someone. We're defining civility right there. And we need to hardwire language on what is contributing to a positive work culture in everything that we do and what we look for in our behavior-based interview questions and how we're evaluating people. And then also at the end of the line, if we're drawing up discipline and saying, okay, these things could get you terminated, we have to define that behavior so that then as HR, we have something clear that we're acting on. And also we're creating a culture where people can even challenge and encourage each other and say, hey, that's not appropriate, because that's the culture you want. You don't want it to be top down. You want it to be something where it's a welcoming culture for all. And when that behavior is not happening, people have the language to talk about it.
One of the other things, though, that you said too, that I think we might get confused is civility does not mean that we accept that we enforce a certain belief on anyone else. Like you can still be yourself and believe what you believe and bring your perspective without feeling like you've got to hide that. There's nothing wrong with us pushing on each other in a productive way to come up with a better solution at the end of the day. Right? And I think some of us might say, well, I'll take civility at the expense of we're not going to ever ruffle anyone's feathers or allow Ramona, who has a different background than me. You were from Michigan, right? And I have a good friend from Michigan, actually. But you were from Michigan before you were in Alabama here with us. Welcome. We love you. Yeah. But like even that one thing gives you a different perspective on the world, because I never lived anywhere else except for here in Huntsville. And so like those little nuances and 100 other things could lead us to come to different conclusions. But civility and embracing that doesn't mean that we give up that other set of that feeling, I guess, that you can belong to.
Exactly. As HR professionals, we know there's already too much research out there that says that corporations benefit from diversity in the workplace and that diverse teams are more productive teams. Sometimes it takes them a little bit slower to get started, but once they get started, they always come out with higher quality outcomes. And so we're not talking about that at all. What we are talking about, and we're not talking about, hey, can I talk about politics, or I have a religious belief, or I just have a background that's different and I need to be able to show up as my whole person and say, hey, this is my background, I see this differently. We want to champion those things. So there's nothing wrong with that. And sometimes they can be uncomfortable. That's what being a good citizen and a good corporate citizen and a good co-worker is about in the workplace, finding ways to have dialogues across different social groups. And so obviously not that at all. But we're more talking about when people, specifically around work, around power structures, around getting work done, around politics, and also around lack of interpersonal skills, will interact in a way that's just not productive with other people. Those are the things that we want to be able to define and we want to address so that they know what it is and they can hopefully change that and come to the workplace differently. But if not, define how we will hire and how we will exit individuals that don't do that for the team.
That's for the benefit of everybody.
Yeah, for productivity.
Can I tell you a quick funny story?
Yes, please.
You said interpersonal skills. That phrase forever will resonate with me. I had someone come in for an interview one time, and the person was abrasive and in your face, would cut you off. I don't know if they forget your name, which I did. I got you with that one. But they did all these things in the interview. You're like, wow, they're sending all the wrong cues. They're not getting it right. And then at the very end, I'm like, hey, anything else that we didn't ask? You want to tell us about? And I'm like, well, I actually want to show you all my training. And they open this big binder they've got right there, all these printed out sheets of training. And the very first one on the top is interpersonal skills and communication. And I'm like, probably need to go back to that class maybe. So every time I see interpersonal skills, I'm like, just because someone's been through that doesn't mean they're going to be squared away. Okay, so sorry, I had to tell that funny story.
No, thank you. And this is tricky stuff too, because if you think about, abrasiveness, and when we talk about things like implicit bias, HR, we have to be really expert at this. Because on one hand, we could say, okay, am I biased that if one person does something, I see it as abrasive, and another one I see as assertive, right? And so we have to make sure that we're putting all of our tools in our toolbox together. Are we supporting diversity, but also are we having a culture where people can thrive and be successful? And it really takes putting on your superhero cap and your big boots and everything else, and not being afraid to tackle those issues. Because the thing about it is, if you don't, they'll still be in the workplace and you'll still have the effects of them. And so we might as well educate as much as we can and just be brave.
So as we're wrapping up, I want to ask you, just kind of open the floor a little bit.
Yeah.
Any piece of advice? Again, we're here on our last day of summer school. We've had a great week of speakers, networking, inspiration, lots of connection with other people. Any recommendations or advice that you would give just to the HR leaders that you're running across, that you're talking to, and some of your own circles, things like that? Any piece of advice or encouragement you'd give to everyone out there listening in, like for the coming weeks, coming months? Anything that you'd like to just throw out there as a tip?
Yeah, well, I would send the same encouragement that I have to do in a pet talk to myself sometimes. As HR people, we really are dealing with unprecedented times. And, I think about the wonderful work of Dave Ulrich, the HR guru, and talking about the competencies and the things that HR can contribute. And a lot of what we've been talking about is really being a culture and change champion, right? And so at this time, when we're dealing with such unprecedented times, we have to be ready to be present and to show up, because we have expertise that the leaders that are coming on us don't have, right? And so they want to know about how do we keep employees engaged in challenging times. They want to know about, how can we keep costs low while maintaining competitive advantage, particularly to staffing resources. And we have that information available. We can't be timid, but we have to be ready. Not that most people are, but we have to just be ready, to bring that information forward and to bear and bring it and have a place at the table. And then when we're really special, really thinking about how to be forward thinking at this time, bringing forward thinking and predictive analytics to, how we think the workplace may change, because there's so much change coming up, and we have to be thinking about, okay, how is the industry that I'm in going to change, and how can HR be a part in preparing my company for that change? And that's culture, that's data. That's all of those things that we do at a strategic level. And then at the same time, in terms of that personal advice that you asked me about, Ben, we have to keep that human piece in it. This is hard. People are struggling. It's hard being at home. It's hard doing the same thing over and over again, and I have to be productive. How do I, am I calling people? Am I reaching out? Am I educating my managers on how to do that, how to look for things to encourage people, how to inspire people? And then lastly, am I doing that for myself? One of the things that I think we're really going to walk away with, and we probably aren't even far enough away to have the data yet, is just how much did people lose work-life balance during this time? Are people logging on, all types of night, all types of weekend, because it's so easy and those lines are so much blurred now. We want to be productive. We want to do a great job. But we know rest is important to productivity and to creativity. And so even as HR, how are we taking care of ourselves and the people around us and the people that love us and the people that we love to be and to show up to be our best selves every day?
Wow. If you had a microphone, I'd just tell you to drop it right there. That was incredible.
Okay.
I love that. So if someone wanted to connect with you, Ramona, want to just follow you, want to learn more about what you're up to, or just say, hey, she's super sharp as an HR pro, what's the best way to connect with you? LinkedIn or some other way?
Yeah, there's two ways to connect with me. You can go to LinkedIn and look up Ramona Burrows, or I even have a website. You can go to ramonaburrows.com. On that website, you'll see two facets of me. You asked me what I like to do when I'm not working, or more about me. So I'm an HR nerd, as I had said. I love my day job. When I get a chance, even a lot of times for free, I'll do seminars and workshops. I love talking about how we can make people successful. But my passion for linking purpose and strengths and strategy also goes to individuals. So I also have ministry. So you can connect with me across all three of those. If you go to ramonaburrows.com and learn more there. And I'm looking forward to meeting new people. And I love LinkedIn connections. So send me one.
Awesome. You heard it here, everybody. She wants as many as you've got for her. Just tell her you heard about her on HR Summer School, or you got to hear her presentation, I guess, her conversation on HR Summer School. She'd love to hear from you there or on the website. Ramona, thank you so much. This has been phenomenal.
Thank you. And thank you for the invitation. I had a great time.
Absolutely. To everybody else, thank you for joining us for this conversation. Stay tuned for the rest of HR Summer School coming right up.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation, kicking it off with a little bit of fire in our bellies from Ramona there. I love her really addressing that issue that all of us deal with. Right? We've got to really, in some companies, they're not always high performers, but you've got a high performer who might not be very kind to the people around them, might have that abrasive personality. And how do we deal with those people? So that was really insightful. I appreciate that. Ramona, so good to have you. Next up, we have Sarah Noel Wilson. She's going to talk to us about how to stop avoiding the elephant in the room. So we're going to jump in and hear from Sarah now. We're seeing Sarah's smiling face, and I'm trying to get that queued up. Give me 1 second. Try to fix this, and we'll make that happen. Give me 1 second, everyone. Have I mentioned how much I appreciate the grace everyone gives me every single day this week, as we've had some fun issue here or there, or goodness, everywhere, trying to get some of these videos to play. So hang tight. Sarah, I know you're there in the chat. I'm going to work to see if I can get this resolved. We're going to move to our next talk after this. And if we can't get Sarah's in, we're going to work to get it together. As I gave you guys kind of a little hint earlier already, we are going to be doing an extra credit session, not just because we can't get some of these to play live right now, but also because we have actually a couple of other speakers that we had already talked to about being a part of this, and we had already filled the agenda. So hang tight 1 second. We'll move to the next one after Sarah and see if we can get that one to work for us. Okay, next up, we have Wendy Daly. We're going to hear from Wendy about building a brand. I'm so excited, and I hope if Wendy's not here, I'll let her know to show up early to hear her session and participate with you guys. So hang tight. We'll get her up.
Thank you, Ben. So excited to be here as part of HR Summer School, and here to talk about something probably a little bit fluffier than some of the others, but want to share just a few things with y'all about your brand and your voice, because where we are in the world with everything that's going on, I feel like it's more important than ever that we all are out there. We are all sharing our thoughts. We are all being a part of this, because the world's not going to change. We're not going to be able to move forward without everybody on board. So want to just chat with you a little bit about that today, and we'll kind of dive into some fun stuff. So, totally showing my age here, but the Who famously asked back in 1978, "Who are you?" And if you don't know the song, highly recommend you go find it, because it's a fun song. The Who are great. But that's the question that most of us ask ourselves. We do it all the time. We are taking the Disney princess. What Disney princess are you? What food are you? What does your favorite color tell you about who you are? We take these tests all the time online, and whether it's whether we're really trying to deep dive into who we are or not, a lot of people like to take those. And so I want to encourage you to kind of look into that a little bit more, and think about how you can use what that is, those tests, those things, to figure out who you can be in this space, who you can be for sharing information, for sharing content, for talking about what's important to you, what you're passionate about, not just at home, because we all have those passions in our home life, but also in the workplace, because most people out there, regardless of what you're doing, you have some sort of passion for it. You hopefully enjoy what you're doing, or you can find that joy. And so that's kind of where finding out who you are, understanding your brand, is going to help take you to that next level. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Sorry. So I want to give you a little bit of a backstory on me and where I'm from, and kind of how I found my brand, for lack of a better word. So you probably know me from the HR Social Hour, from Twitter chats, from the podcast, and that's something that developed over time. So for a long time, I was on Twitter, following different hashtags, HR stuff, and did a lot of lurking. And people kind of take lurking, or stalking, for lack of a better term, to be something bad. But really what I was doing during that time was learning. I was figuring out where I sat on issues, what were my opinions on these things, learning about them, learning from a lot of great HR professionals by following these chats, by following them on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on other social media. Now, I'll admit fully, I am a huge Twitter fan. That's where I've met all the lovely people on the screen. And that's where I got connected with John. And, people are surprised that John and I are not in the same even state. We were, didn't know each other at the time, but I did live in Richmond for a while. But people didn't realize that we created this camaraderie, this relationship on Twitter. And when I first met John in person in 2016 at SHRM in DC, it was one of those weird events where it's just like, oh, should I say something? Because I know you online, I don't know you in person. But I did. I did start. I did reach out to him and said, hey, I know you. And kind of just got to know him a little bit better. We had a chance to take some walks together and get to know each other. Kind of thought that would be it, other than our, visits as part of Twitter chats. So the following year, when neither one of us was going to SHRM, we were feeling sorry for ourselves, and thus was born our Twitter chat. But we had taken the time ahead of that to build those relationships, to create that community of people who might want to be a part of those conversations. And again, that was by showing up. That was by being there and finding that we did know what we were talking about, that we did learn something in these conversations and had an opinion, and those opinions mattered. We learned how to disagree with people, how to have ongoing conversations on things, which really builds that relationship. And that's really all social media is doing, is building that relationship. So John and I took that and turned it into a Twitter chat. And it was a regular Twitter chat, trying to figure out, what we want to do, who we want to be when we grow up, all of that fun stuff. But John's big thing was he really wanted to start a podcast. And I was curious, not a big podcast listener, mostly because I didn't have time to listen. I didn't have a lot of downtime. When I did, I was doing other things. But John was kind of persistent about it, and I was thinking about it. But the thing that bothered me the most was, how do we stand apart? Because, John and I don't have the big titles. We don't have the VP, we don't have director behind us to give that push. How do we be seen as experts, and what do we need to talk about? There are so many great HR podcasts out there. Ben has a fantastic one, highly recommended if you haven't listened. But there's a lot of them, and they're good. And so it's kind of like, how do we stand out within that noise? How do we how do we get people to listen to us? Because there's so many other people, there's other experts, and where do we fit into all of that? How do we stand apart? Well, about that same time, I also had the opportunity to attend the SHRM National Leadership Conference. And one of the things that came out of that for me was that, the reason these organizations still exist, the reason that the SHRM national and state and local and other groups still continue to evolve and meet those needs, is that people want to belong to something. People need to have that feeling of connection, that feeling of camaraderie. And we're seeing it a lot more now that we can't get together in person. John and I are really seeing a huge push for having some sort of even virtual connection. People are coming to Twitter chats we haven't seen before. People are showing up at our, we're now having video or movie watch nights. We're having trivia nights, just so that people can have that connection, because we're not getting it in person. We can't go down to the bar. We don't get to go to San Diego. We don't get to go to San Antonio and see people in person and gain that camaraderie. So people are thirsty for that. And that's really kind of a lot of what I learned at SHRM back in 2017 at the leadership conference. So before I left, John and I were on the phone waiting. He was driving and I was waiting for my airplane, and I was telling him about this, and it just kind of hit us that this is what our podcast should be about. It should be about that connection. It should be about growing, helping people connect with each other, making that networking easier. I don't like to network. I don't like the traditional networking where you're going to go to a place where you don't know anybody and you're going to exchange business cards. That's not my thing. I'm definitely not my thing at all. But by giving a chance to know people ahead of time, it makes that connection easier, so that that we've had Ben on the show, and now what his favorite movie is, what his favorite music is, and you can go and have that conversation with him, even if it's to pick a fight over how can you think that Die Hard is a fantastic movie, or my favorite ongoing argument, how can you say Die Hard is a Christmas movie? That's my favorite argument online nowadays, because we all have our sides and we can still pick and choose and have fun with that. But it is that way to connect. And that's what people were looking for. And so that's what we did with the social hour. But the other thing that we did that I think is the brilliant piece of all of this, to toot our own horn 100%, is we're not just speaking to leaders in the traditional sense. We're not just talking to the people that are doing strategy and how do you lead and how do you come up with these strategic ideas. But we're talking to practitioners, and we're talking to people who do that day-to-day work, because it's not just about listening to the leaders and the people in charge anymore. It's about listening to everybody. And that's where you all come in to share your voice. People want to hear from practitioners. this is what I'm hearing all over the place when I'm talking with other people about who do we bring in to talk about different things. Who are we going to talk to about a recruitment strategy? Who should we talk to about a social media strategy? Who should we talk to about employee engagement or any of those HR topics? It's great to have the strategy, and we need that, and we need the leadership. But what we also need is to hear from the practitioners. We need to hear from those people that are doing the day-to-day work. How are you getting it done? That's what I see all the time online. People need that. We need to know, how do you take this awesome recruitment strategy and put it into something that's real? And my day-to-day job is talent strategy. I'm in talent acquisition, and my job is to put together these strategies. So what I'm doing is taking the idea that our leaders have and putting it in place. So, right now we're working on implementing some new training strategies to bring in candidates into entry-level positions. Entry-level, but they require some training, they require some certification. So how do we get from this awesome online training all the way through to getting them hired and getting them working for us? It's not as easy as flipping a switch, because there's to-dos and there's things that need to happen on that day-to-day basis. And there's a lot of people that need to be involved. I'm in a large organization, so there's a lot of different people that need to be involved in these conversations. And you can't just have it done in a silo. So how do you bring all of those people together? And even knowing who to call. Who are you supposed to bring in with you? I think those are those questions that, if you don't have an outlet, if you don't have someone else to go talk to and learn about those things, you can't get them done. And so that's where everybody's voice is important. That's why I truly believe everyone needs to be sharing what they're doing and what they're working on. Very little of what we're doing in HR is proprietary and can't be shared. Very little of it is. So share your thoughts on things. Give people feedback when they're talking about, oh, we want to use a CRM. We're looking at bringing in a new HCM. Who did you go with? Why did you go with it? What was your process like? None of us need to reinvent the wheel from the beginning. We don't need to start over. So we need your voice out there. Now, how to figure that out? Don't take your Disney princess tests and figure out where your areas of expertise are. But I think you'll be surprised. I think you'd be surprised once you get out there and start talking and start sharing with people. I think you'd be surprised at where those areas come into. For a long time, I really thought that I wanted to be a generalist. I thought that I really wanted to work in a small organization and wanted to do the whole breadth of HR. Well, as I got to talking with people, as I got more active on Twitter and in chats, I found that part of HR, some of those pieces of HR didn't excite me as much as talent acquisition, as much as that entry into the organization, as much as that finding the right person and helping the hiring manager with the process, helping that overall thing, and not just the onesie twosie pieces of everything that's coming. But that's how I found it, was getting active online. So I want to encourage you to figure out where are you going to share? How are you going to get your voice out there? I can't tell you what. I can't tell you the what, but we can talk about the how. So I want to definitely encourage you to back up. Oh my goodness. This is how it happens sometimes, isn't it? Okay, we're all good. We're all good. Oh, sorry. So I want you to find the medium that works for you, whether it's social media, whether it's blogging, whether it's speaking, or just volunteering. You can get into a volunteer organization and join a board. For the longest time, I refused to get into a leadership position at a local SHRM or a local ASHRA or local whatever, because what is my expertise? I'm not a VP. I'm not I'm not even a manager. I don't even have that title. So why would someone want to listen to me? But that's not the world we live in anymore. We're not just looking for the CHRO's opinion. We're looking for the generalist's opinion. And quite honestly, we should also be looking at the HR assistant's opinions. Those people are doing the day-to-day, and they're the ones that know, does this work? Does this process work? Is it flowing for everybody? What are the pain points, not just for the candidate, but what are the pain points for HR? What are the pain points for the assistant? And how can we make that better? So there are ways that you can connect on so many different levels. You don't have to do what everyone else is doing, but chances are there's someone else who's doing it the way you want to. So you can reach out, you can find them, and connect and learn, because that's why we're going out there. That's why we want to be. I want you to talk. I want you to share what you're doing, because we can learn from you. Andy Storch, love talking with him. He's one of those voices out there. But he had this tweet out there a while ago, and I was like, I need to share this, because this isn't a zero-sum game. There is room for everybody's voice out there. There's room for your voice, and we need to hear it. And we want you to have it out there. So I want to close with this quote from Toni Morrison, because I think it really fits with where we are in the world today. We're in a completely different place, but we all need to be out. We all need to be speaking. We all need to be writing. So as Toni Morrison says, there is no time for despair, no place for self-pity, no need for silence, no room for fear. We speak, we write, we do language. That is how civilizations heal. I know the world is bruised and bleeding, and though it is important not to ignore its pain, it is also critical to refuse to succumb to its malevolence. Like failure, chaos contains information that can lead to knowledge, even wisdom, like art. Shout out to Elena Valentine for sharing this, but is I think the perfect quote for now, and for such a time as this, for encouraging you to find a medium, find what works for you, find the way to share your thoughts, your feelings, and what you're learning, because it's important. There's room for all of us. There's plenty of space. So I want you to welcome in, and I do want you all to tell your story. So I appreciate you guys listening to me, giving you a little bit of time back in the time frame here. Please connect with me. My Twitter handle is out there, Wendell93. Highly encourage you to follow our hashtags of the HR Social Hour and HR Wonder Women, and we'll see you out there. Y'all have a great day.
I hope you enjoyed Wendy's story there. I love hearing. I told you earlier this week that John has become a good friend. I'm so glad to have met Wendy through John and through their podcast. And I feel like you listen to a few episodes and you feel like you know and just know them, even though they're the ones kind of grilling. They're the ones interviewing their guests, but you feel like you get to know them. So John and Wendy had a special offer for everyone. Really wanted to support kind of the power of just giving back and connecting, building your network. So in the spirit of that, they're going to give away a book to some summer school attendees. If you share a post on LinkedIn, you tag HR Social Hour, all one phrase, HR Social Hour, and HR Summer School in that same post. They'll keep an eye on that, on any posts that have those two things on them. Post about the event, post about hearing Wendy, post about John, make them feel good, post about anything from the event. Just make sure you tag both of those things. And before next Friday, John will collect the names, we'll draw a winner, and you get your choice of The Memo by Minda Hartz, HR on Purpose, or HR Rising by Steve Brown, or my book. Thank you guys for that, Artificial Intelligence for HR. So be sure to connect with John, connect with Wendy, and check out their podcasts. It's fun, it's engaging, and again, you've enjoyed building your network this week. You'll get to know some people really, really well. Some of the people that I've seen in the thread, in the conversation, you'll get to see them there in the conversations there. So our next speaker, Robin Schooling. If you don't know Robin, I've known her for many years and just appreciate her. I met her when she worked in HR for a casino, and she had the best stories. She probably still does. She hasn't told me all of them yet, but she works for a different organization now. But I love hearing her share because she has a unique perspective, and she's going to talk about how to be an independent thinker in a conventional world. So Robin, let's get you up.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am so glad to be here at HR Summer School as we are wrapping up this wonderful week of learning, this virtual learning that we're doing. I personally am on week 10, maybe 12 of stay at home, and it has been, as I'm sure we all can agree, a little bit different. Now, I've been working at home for quite some time. I'm with a 100% distributed remote company, but still, this has been just a bit off, right? I have managed, on the one hand, to do more cooking than I have in years. I've organized my Tupperware, and I've cleaned out my bookshelves. I've also been forced to cut my own hair and even decided, if you can tell, to dye it blue. I used to have pink for a while, but I figured, why not go blue? What the hell? Sure, I interact with professional colleagues in video chats, hopefully in person, resuming soon. But why should it matter to them if my hair is blue or that I have 13 tattoos with, oh horrors, some of them being visible? Is it the rebel in me? HR rebel? Well, maybe a bit. I've never been on the dangerous side of being a rebel, but I consider myself rebellious nevertheless, especially when it comes to work and HR. I get frustrated, I will admit it, but constantly like to ask for years and years and years to the collective HR profession, why do we do the things we do? When we know there are things that can be improved in our workplaces or in the practice of HR or in the delivery of HR, why don't we make those changes? It's a mystery to me. Why are HR people so concerned with propriety, for want of a better word, with dress codes and hairstyles? Who made us the arbiters of professional decorum, the mismanners of the workplace? We are, after all, champions of diversity and inclusion. We should be embracing all the wonderfulness embedded in the DNA of individual human beings, of our individual employees. Yet we are also often the group most vociferously arguing for dress codes and hair codes and hair colors that look, quote, professional. Well, it's because someone, once upon a time, decided that only, quote, colors found in nature are appropriate hair colors in the workplace. And so year over year, decade over decade, numerous HR folks have used that exact same phrase in their dress code policies. Why, oh why, oh why? These are the things that I ponder about and keep me up at night and, kind of get me worked up. Now, perhaps I've sometimes thought my superpower is poking sticks at the sacred cows, or in more colloquial language, speaking truth to BS. And there's lots to poke at and speak to in the business world. But as business professionals and HR professionals, if we feel strongly about doing something that we can envision and see with clarity that could shift the dynamics towards success in our organizations, or could move our HR function or profession to a better way, or could make the experience for people at work better. I believe that we in HR should not only be advocates, but we should be a bit rebellious. Yes, we in HR. Now, it doesn't just happen, though. It requires a foundation of knowledge and awareness, of purposefulness, a fresh approach, and perseverance. We often discuss innovation or disruption or transformation. You know, that's $1 billion industry right there. I'm a very small part of those $1 billion, but helping companies transform, especially HR transformation and digital transformation, is something we talk about a lot. Now, simply put, an organization's transformation project from that HR side is done to ensure that a company's people strategies are aligned with the business strategies. It's about pace, it's about speed, it's about consistency of purpose and alignment towards organizational objectives. But here's what we often don't talk about. Before we in our HR roles can transform or disrupt or innovate, let alone take our departments and our functions with us, we have to be what I like to call independent thinkers. And that is a badge I wear with honor. And it's a personal journey. It's a personal mindset. Independent thinkers are willing to leave their comfort zone. They resist the status quo and break old habits. Independent thinkers incrementally and consistently do things different every day while continuously exploring new ideas from a variety of perspectives. Independent thinkers believe in what they do, take risks, and proudly wear the badge of outlier. Now, this can be hard work. Trailblazers challenge prevailing wisdom, refuse to stay the course, and push others to deviate from that which is traditional and ordinary. And it is very easy to find comfort by repeating that which has come before, to continue to do things the traditional way. But that sort of thinking has long moved us in HR along a well-trod path where we study someone else's best practices, replicate them, and believe that we're being innovative. There is such a thing, I do believe, as death by best practice. And we do this in HR all the time. We like to copy and paste, as it were, job descriptions that we borrow from another organization or a colleague down the street. We copy and paste interview questions and hiring evaluation criteria, onboarding programs and agendas. We copy and paste post-training evaluations and measurements for training success and effectiveness, and performance review processes, and forms and templates, and again, even success criteria that we take from another organization or we borrow from a colleague and merely replicate. Rather than doing the hard work of sitting down and thinking about what is unique to our organization and our HR function, we grab somebody else's practice, reformat it with a new font, slap our logo on it, and consider it done. We then take it to our executive team and tout it proudly, which is really rather sad. You know, as an example, going to the executive team and saying, here's what our competitor Acme Corporation is doing for their employee referral program. So I've changed the amount slightly, and now we're going to roll with it because, Acme Corporation has a best practice. We like to throw that in there to the exec team. So it looks like we've discovered something super awesome or created something ourselves. That, my friends, is death by best practice. But I'm willing to bet, I can guarantee you, that amongst this group here at HR Summer School, we have many folks who have bucked the status quo and done some organizational trailblazing. Thinking outside the box may be a cliche, but it's, readily understandable shorthand for divergent thinking. Rather, though, I see this as being an independent thinker, that shift in personal mindset that happens well before innovation or transformation or disruption. And becoming and remaining an independent thinker means that someone has 4 attributes. I like to call them the 4 I's. So first, independent thinkers are inquisitive. They build and strengthen their foundational knowledge. You can't push for something different or better if you're not coming from that solid rock, that solid base of understanding and knowledge. So yes, this means solidifying those basic underpinnings of the HR knowledge base. Legal compliance, comp and benefits, talent acquisition, workplace safety, the whole shebang. But being inquisitive also means exposing yourself to new ideas and thoughts. This means being curious about everything, all facets of society, culture, business, politics, pop culture, you name it. It's about constantly learning and widening your world. It's interacting with people who are different from you. It's consuming content. Be a voracious reader. Listen to podcasts. Participate in group discussions. In HR, certainly, but also outside of HR. It's about intentionally seeking out articles or books that you might normally avoid, things that seem to be the antithesis of what you believe. And it's about recognizing that others' perspectives may also be right. Excuse me. So it's awareness, it's knowledge, it's perception, it's curiosity, and it's critical evaluation skills. All of these lead to insight as part of being inquisitive. Secondarily, independent thinkers are intentional, always asking why. They take a macro view. This is when you step outside of your comfort zone and view things from on high. You take a wider glimpse of what's going on. It's putting yourself in someone else's shoes. And then, as part of that intentional fix to things, they look for what's broken and then fix it. So how do you go about doing that? Well, asking someone who doesn't know the right way or the HR way to do something, how they would go about doing it can be very eye-opening. Probing in this way and having conversations with people outside of our sphere can lead to clarity and can also lead to simplicity. That's part of why an independent thinker isn't going to rely on best practices. This is not just, asking in an HR Facebook group or at the table of a monthly SHRM luncheon what someone else is doing. Replicating sameness does nothing to fix your problems. Replicating sameness does nothing to move your unique people experience forward. It does nothing to fix what's happening at your organization. So be purposeful, be audacious, be bold. being intentional is also about having grit and spunk and a bit of endurance. Now, independent thinkers are also inventive, taking things to the next level. Truly being an independent thinker is to create something new and unexpected that has an impact or changes something for the better. You start this by imagining the desired outcome that you want: increased revenue, reduced costs, becoming an employer of choice, whatever it is. What do you want? Or what is the purpose for what you're doing? What are you trying to achieve? So think about inventiveness. Who came up with the first unlimited PTO plan? Who came up with the radical idea of, in the US anyway, radical, paid parental leave of 6 or 12 months? Who was the first advocate many, many years ago for allowing employees to work from home? Independent thinkers boldly go where no one has gone before. And finally, independent thinkers are intrepid. They believe in greatness. Here is where you stand up for yourself. You embrace being the rebel. You are not afraid to be told no. You're not afraid of failure. You know, I often like to evaluate this by asking myself around a particular issue, is this a hill that I'm willing to die on? And when the answer is yes, and I feel very strongly about either building something new or dismantling something old and worn out, I persevere. This is about having HR strength of character. This is about being okay with battling the naysayers. This is about pushing back while simultaneously pushing forward. If it was easy, everyone would do it. But being an independent thinker is not about taking the easy way. Now, sometimes you win the battle and may still feel that you're losing the war. I have won battles over the years, and I've lost some, but also learned lessons along the way, of course. I lost a battle on the implementation of 9-box exercises coupled with forced rankings at one organization. I scaled that hill, but I wasn't willing to die on it because I was making plans to exit the company anyway. Now, the lesson there was that sometimes an organization or a leader that you need to influence and convince doesn't want to change and is impervious to research and arguments. They're immovable. And when they're immovable, you have to find the wedge, discover why they refuse to change. Again, I knew why, I had discovered why, but I abandoned that particular fight at that organization and with that leader because, well, I was frankly past the point of caring and soon to be making my exit. Many, many years ago, I stood on a hill, feet firmly planted, to dismantle a ridiculous attendance point policy. A policy, type of policy, which I just despise for reasons far too numerous to go into now. But let me say that this was a dismantle and a create, build something new. And that which was created, by the way, resulted in staff retention going up, overtime and agency staffing costs going down, and annual savings approaching $200,000. So there was a goal, there was a vision of what needed to be accomplished, and it was throwing out the old and traditional and recommending changes that were at that time and at that organization and in that industry radical. but they resulted in an entirely new model that met the goals and also changed the entire dynamic of the workplace. Now, another hill that I was willing to die on was at an organization where, I took my stand, and I was willing to give it up on the subject of this absolutely inane rollout of the useless annual engagement survey. It was deemed crucial by corporate HR until I came along. I was at a regional leadership position. It was a meaningless exercise. It was designed and administered poorly using, you guessed it, best practices and samples of other companies' engagement surveys. And for years, it resulted in no meaningful actions or improvements. So I arrived, I went through the first one, and then I pushed back. I was armed with research. There's that first eye for you. I presented my case up the ladder to the corporate overlords. Back and forth we went. I was actually informed I was not being a team player. Little rebellious there, I guess. To which I replied, actually, I'm being a great team player for our people. I could really care less if Bob, the SVP, is upset that I'm not rolling over on something I feel is important. Lucky, I guess, that I wasn't fired. Recalcitrant? Perhaps, but I was not content to walk down that garden path with my dutiful HR colleagues in the organization. I wasn't gonna be in lockstep with them because it was something that was very important to me. It was not only a waste of time, but also was ultimately causing harm to the people and the organization. So it was independence. It was about being an independent thinker within an organization and driving that change forward. So HR professionals, I implore you to think for yourselves. Use your knowledge, your wisdom, and your heart to do the right thing. You're doing the right thing when you're questioning that which has come before. You're doing the right thing when you're moving the HR profession forward. You're creating constancy of purpose to drive organizational success. And you're doing the right thing when you're making the world of work a better place for everyone. So be inquisitive, be intentional, be inventive, be intrepid, be an independent thinker. Be someone who says, I come from HR and I'm here to help. And people believe you. Great things never came from comfort zones. And I believe that we can do better. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you, Robin, for challenging us, for encouraging us, for, I forgot your exact phrase, basically poking the sacred cows and saying that the way that we're doing things, the way we have done things is not okay. And we're going to try to shake that up and break that apart. And I think you probably inspired some people, giving them some courage, some hope that they can do that as well, that they can make that happen for their own organizations. And I appreciate you being willing to, again, be that voice, be that encouragement, be that push to make that happen. That's incredible. And if you can't tell, I'm stalling slightly, trying to see if we can get Sarah Noel Wilson's content set to see if that will play for us. Working on that on this end. In the meantime, I mentioned the contest earlier. If you have not been with us throughout the week, then it might surprise you that halfway through today, we're going to break. We're going to have an intermission. Halfway through the intermission, we are going to break this broadcast because we can't run one for as long as we'd like to. Unfortunately, LinkedIn won't allow us to. So we're going to break this broadcast, and push to a new live stream link at that time. So if you want to, that's not even a question, you want to participate in this afternoon, stay tuned to the event page and you can join us. Stay tuned to that event page and you can join us there once everything is moved over and migrated. All right. And that look of excitement on my face is us getting Sarah's video set. So I mentioned this a minute ago, but if you are, we do not have captions on this, unfortunately. So this, we'll have to get the captions into the replay of it, but I believe we're going to get Sarah's video to play for us at least, because I'm excited to see what she has to share with us. Here we go.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Noel Wilson, and I am so excited and honored to be with you here today. I am the owner of a leadership coaching and consulting company where my team and I work very closely with leaders and senior leaders to help them build and rebuild their relationships, with an emphasis on that one, because that's usually what's happening. But I am just so excited to be here because, you know, when I was a kid, I never wanted to be a part of summer school because that meant that maybe you were struggling and nobody wanted to do that. But I want to be a part of this. So happy HR summer school. Yeah. I mean, so in full transparency, I have this whiteboard and I just wanted to use it. So that's what's going to be on the whiteboard today. I want to give a big shout out to Ben Eubanks and his entire team who have organized this, because it is really incredible, their time and dedication to pull this together, to get speakers together, to get us together in a time when we can't be, so that we can connect, so that we can share information, and so that we can learn and grow. So for the last 10 years, I have been trying to understand, explore, research, experiment. How do we free the elephant in the room? How do we take care of that pesky little thing that gets in our way of us being able to be successful? So for the next 30 minutes or so, I'm going to share with you some of those key findings I've learned over the last decade. Now, I also understand this is a very complex topic, and it's one that's easy to talk about intellectually, but it is a very different situation when you're the one who has to bring it up, or you're the one who has to acknowledge it. So I just want to call that out. But my goal is to give you some really good tips, help you understand some traps, and then also talk about some specific techniques that we can do. So let's talk about the three main areas we're going to cover today. And the first is, we'll spend a little bit of time understanding and identifying, like, how do we identify the elephants in the room? The second thing is, we'll explore, why do we avoid them to begin with? And then finally, we'll spend some time identifying some key steps for how to address, or as I like to call it, free the elephant. Now, you might be like, Sarah, why don't you just call it calling out? That's what everyone calls it. I use the term freeing very intentionally. When I hear the term, oh, you just got to call the elephant out, usually it's shared. I mean, just even that term is like, just got to call it out. There's an aggression behind it. And I don't know about you, but if there's an elephant in the room, that tells me that the stress or the anxiety is already heightened, and we don't need to match it with heightened behavior or language. So I like to think of it as like free. We're just gonna free the elephant. We're just gonna let it doesn't want to be in there. So let's dig into, what do we mean when we talk about what's the elephant in the room? So here's what I want you to do. I want you to think about, imagine that somebody was like, I've never heard of this term, because this isn't a globally understood term, as I've learned. This is a metaphor that is used very much in the Western world. And so I'm curious to know from you. So go ahead and put it into the chat. How would you define the elephant in the room to somebody who wasn't familiar with it?
Okay, it was too much to hope for. Goodness gracious. Okay, we are going to, since Sarah's video will not play appropriately, we're going to put her in detention for now. We're going to move to David Arrington instead. We're going to move up to that fireside chat. And again, we'll get the content with Sarah, probably end up getting the content with Joey Price together into an extra credit session in the coming week or two, just to make sure we cover all the content that we promised to you, just because I couldn't figure out all the technical stuff on the front end. Okay, so hang tight. I'm going to get David Arrington's talk up. He and I are talking about how to be promotable, how to put your best foot forward. I think it's a great continuation of some of the conversations we've heard this morning already. Hey everyone, welcome to another conversation here at HR Summer School. So glad to have you. These fireside chats have been fun for me all week long because I've gotten to talk to these amazing experts and leaders in different areas. And one of those I'm about to talk to today, Dr. David Arrington. He said he only uses it for this stuff, right? To show he has some credibility, but he is down to earth. He has a lot of credibility in space, and he is someone that I have come to look to when I'm thinking about leadership and how to live my life more intentionally. David, welcome, sir.
Thank you so much. That's very warm, kind welcome, Ben. I appreciate it.
All right, now you got to live up to it. That's the challenge.
That's always the challenge, right?
So I gave you some kudos, but tell the audience about who you are and what you do.
So briefly, because it's not about me, I'm an executive coach and I'm a leadership coach. And what that means is I help executives and organizations shape and develop leaders so that they can function in a way that helps them get the results they need to get. That's the high level way. I do leadership training as well. I also do online leadership courses as an augment to all the other good things I do. That's the long and short of it. By the way, father, husband, yeah, that's the most important thing. Dog lover. We'll drop that in there.
We will not tell your wife and children they were the last ones on your list, but
they know. They're in the book. They're, they know they get their kudos.
A kid, that's always the last line in my bio. They want to see like the formal official stuff. And then the very end, I'm like, husband of this long, this many kids, and here's a fun fact about me. Usually that's how it goes. So one of the things you didn't mention, I don't think, I didn't catch it in there, is also you're an author. You've written a book.
Oh yeah.
And
I have.
That's one of the reasons I wanted to have you here this week to talk to the audience, because you've written a book about being promotable, how to put the things in yourself, how to work with the surrounding environment. And this was written prior to all the stuff that's going on now, but how to work within the constraints you have to be more promotable. And I was hoping to bring us some wisdom from that book, because I've read it. I don't have it on my desk anymore because I've read it and put it on the shelf, but I had it right here. Yeah, I'm sure yours is handy, within reach. See, look at that. I'd love for you to share some of the wisdom from that, because I think it's really practical, especially now. One of the reasons we put this event together is to help those people that are going through some career transitions, whether intentionally or not, in the middle of all this. And I thought that you would have some words of encouragement and some inspiration there.
So you're absolutely right, Ben. And thanks for, just teeing that up so nicely. We are in an unprecedented moment, and Promotable was written last year, October, November last year in 2019. And we launched it pretty much almost a month to the day when everything just changed. And we moved from business as usual to living in the upside down. So while promotions may not be top of mind for some people because they're just trying to get another job or get back on their feet or just trying to figure out what their next steps are going to be, we can take the principles from Promotable and apply them and use them to springboard out of a difficult moment, or at least push through a difficult moment. So the first one I would say is, and this is chapter 1, don't play through the pain. So most people think they've got to muscle up, they've got to man up, they've got to woman up, they've got to just kind of, He-Man and She-Ra through a difficult moment. And they feel that it's a sign of weakness if they don't, right? If you actually acknowledge that you're overwhelmed, that you acknowledge that you're grieving the loss of a job, grieving the loss of a promotion, grieving the loss of whatever it is that's going on in your career right now in this moment, they think that it's weakness. it's not weakness, it's self-honesty. You're being honest with yourself, because a lot of the overwhelm that, and I'll be honest, as everything changed, I was overwhelmed. There was a lot going on. It's not like I'm impervious to being overwhelmed. And a lot of people around me, leaders at all levels of organizations that I work with and I reached out to, were also overwhelmed. When you try to act like that doesn't happen and that's not a part of your story, guess what? You're going to grind gears. It's going to be 25 times as hard to get things done, to get moving forward. And you're only delaying your bounce back. You're only delaying that moment when you can start moving again, because you've got to acknowledge it. And a lot of people just don't want to do that. So my first thing I would tell you is just be honest with yourself. Don't try to play through the pain. I would say, some of the things I give in the book, just scream into a pillow, right? Yell, yell outside, whatever you have to do. Talk to a counselor, talk to a trusted advisor, talk to a friend. Like some of my clients, they've talked to me about just being so overwhelmed, because this is that moment. This is the moment where you get a pass. If you've got to be the rock for everybody, I'm giving you a pass in this moment, so you can just say, hey, I need a break. So maybe in the comments right now, you just want to say, man, I'm overwhelmed and I'm not ashamed to admit it. Because guess what? You saying that in the comments and sharing that with someone else is going to give them the permission and the comfort level to say, yeah, I'm overwhelmed too. And it's okay, because acknowledging it is really just that first step. It's the first step to starting to get through and move from where you are in this overwhelm zone to actually getting back to being yourself, because you're going to need to be your best self if you're looking for a new job, if you're navigating this job market at all, if you are now going to be asked to do more work at the same pay and just happy to have a job, right? So any and all of those are going to require you to just admit, yeah, this is an overwhelming moment, and I'm okay saying I'm overwhelmed, because that's, again, it's just the first step in getting you from where you are to where you need to be.
I was going to say, I'm having this conversation with you and I'm listening to you. I'm like, I felt the urge to go over there and type like, yes, feeling a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Feeling a little bit of that between the kids at home and everything, and the work things being upended and all the plans. One of the words you used there was grief. And
yeah,
I've actually heard that a couple of times this week from different perspectives. And I think that's one of the things it seems weird to use kind of a business context. We don't always think about that. We don't think about, that kind of humanizes the problem to say this is truly grief for these people and how we're feeling and how everybody processes this differently in a different way. I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm glad you brought that up, because again, you said it for them openly, explicitly, but it feels like, okay, just to hear it out loud, it gives me permission to feel like, okay, I don't have it all together. I admit it.
And let's be very, very clear. This is a human problem, right? Every level of this is a human problem. So to try to isolate it and cordon it off into some other realm where it's not a human problem is denial, right? Again, another of the 5 stages of grief. So you end up putting yourself in a position where mentally you can't process, because you've taken that power away from yourself. So that's why I just say that, because when I wrote this, it was primarily for when you lose a promotion, because people do bad things. They do weird things that are out of context. We're not our best selves when we're stressed out. And, we need a Snickers moment, right? You're not yourself. So what ends up happening is I try to short circuit that process to allow people to see that they're not being their best self, and that they're about to go down a path where they can't be their best self. And what that does is that freedom allows them to step back and say, okay, yeah, I see it now. So yeah, that's just something I do with coaching clients, and I brought into the book, because I know that a lot of people are going to be struggling because of the promotion situation. And now, since the book dropped, the entire economy and the job market situation.
Okay, so that's a great one. Good one to start with. What are the wisdom you have from there? I'm
Okay.
Give that whole dang book away, man. Whatever you got, just share with
Yeah,
us.
I'm giving everything away. I'm giving everything away. So let's look at another chapter, Set Up for Success or Failure. Fundamentally, your mindset matters. And it ties right in with what we're talking about. But when we talk about mindset matters, I'm just naturally a very positive, bubbly person, and that's me. When people ask me how I am, I say without hesitation, I'm on top of the world, having the best day ever. And I'm giving you those words. And I even work through that in the book, helping people walk through that, because every time somebody smiles, they laugh, or they say, wow, I wish I could be there, or I'm not there yet. And in the back of my mind, I've learned to stop saying it, but I can challenge your listeners. You're listening right now. I can challenge you to say, what's stopping you from actually saying the words? For me, it has become a habit, right? It's a reflex now. How are you doing? I'm on top of the world, best day ever. Guess what happens? Two people hear when I say that. You hear it because I'm saying it to you. And guess what? I hear it because I get to choose my responses. I get to choose my state of mind. And if I get to choose a state of mind, I'm going to pick a sunny state of mind. I'm not picking a gloomy state of mind. I'm not picking a desolate, the world is ending state of mind. No, because outside factors don't get to determine my inside state of mind. So my how am I doing response is never I'm good, I'm okay, I can't complain. All the random ones that people just say and don't even think about. I would encourage you to slide into more positivity. Find positivity, hunt for it, especially when things don't seem like they are positive. And the way you can do that, one, be more mindful. If you meditate, or if you need to pray, or whatever it is, get into a place where you're more mindful, where you're taking the time to actually enjoy the now, not worry about the later, or, keep rolling over and rehearsing the past, the then, right? Be now, be in this moment, practice gratitude. We can always do this. We can always say, hey, guess what? I lost this. I don't have this. I wish I had this. I want this. Great. What do you have? If it's as simple as saying I'm healthy, right? Or if it's simple as saying I'm alive, that's what you can put in the chat right now. You can say what you're grateful for right now. Put it in the chat right now. Say, I'm grateful for this, and tag me. I want you to tag at Dr. David Arrington. I don't even remember, on LinkedIn. Well, just tag me too. I love to celebrate those things with you. And finally, again, I say change what you're saying to yourself. That internal dialogue is a lot of what keeps us from being positive, a lot of what keeps us from taking those steps forward. Guess what? You hear me talking and this is cool and you get it, and I the flow, and I keep my sentences together, my thoughts together. But even I have those moments. I hear that little voice that says, David, why do you think they want to hear you? What's going on? What's so cool about you? Why you? I hear the voice too. I choose to ignore it, or I choose to tell it to shut up and sit down and then let me do what I have to do, right? And guess what? When I control the voice, it doesn't control me. So that's why I say I'm on top of the world, best day ever. That's why I try to stay in a positive state of mind, because there's so many other things in the world that are going to try to pull me down, that if I focus on them, I can't be that guy. So I intentionally don't focus on certain things so I can stay this guy. So remember, your mindset matters. And if you want to put that in the chat, guess what? You can write mindset matters in the chat right now as well, because it does. And that would be a reminder to you as well. Don't take it for granted. The way you think definitely impacts the responses and the way you respond to specific situations. And right now, it's a very stressful time. It's a very unexpected time. It's just like I said earlier at the top of the fireside chat. We're living in the upside down right now, and that takes its toll. So guess what? If you can't change outside, you definitely have control over the inside. That's why I would tell you to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success, not setting yourself up for failure when it comes to your mindset.
I read a book years ago, and one of the principles kind of stuck with me I have no idea what the rest of the book was about. But the one thing that stuck with me, that happens to you too, I'm sure.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
That said, we always think that motivation leads to action. We always assume that. When I get motivated enough, then I'll do that thing.
Know where you're going.
But at the same time, as you're saying here, action can lead to more motivation. We're like, I'm just going to get up and get started and do this.
Yep.
And then you find out, hey, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was. once you've got up and
Exactly.
started doing it, you can build the motivation to continue, to finish, to move in the right direction. It's not always easy. I don't want to act like it's as simple as just snapping your fingers, but when you're like, I just can't get motivated to do that thing. My wife is like the master at this. She's like, I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna go for a walk for 5 minutes. So I feel good. I'll go for half an hour. But right
Yeah.
now I don't feel like go for half an hour. And she'll start
Yeah.
and she's like, hey, you know what? I actually can do that. Once I got
Exactly.
started, I didn't want to stop because I did feel
Exactly.
you get the right energy going, you get the right forward momentum, and then it carries you to the finish. And that's the thing I was thinking of as you're sharing there. Like, it's the power of being positive. We heard from one of our speakers, one of our fireside chats this week was Steve Brown. He talked about being intentional about connecting with people because that helps to lift you up, right?
Yep.
You want to meet with those other people that are wanting to lift others up, and lifting them up. Guess what? That lifts you up too at the same time.
Absolutely. And I would take that very specifically to where we are in this conversation. So you may not want to send out another resume. You may not want to do that one more step, but I would encourage you, just set a 5-minute timer or a 10-minute timer. Give yourself 10 minutes to get that task done. And basically that's just pushing over that first domino. And what happens is 10 minutes turns into 20, 30, and now you're back in sync. But to get over that initial overwhelm, that initial inertia, basically you want to just give yourself a quick timer to get yourself going again, because anyone can do something for 10 or 15 minutes. Like your wife said, I'm going to walk for 5 minutes. And if it turns into 30, that's cool. And basically it generally turns into 30 because that's the way we work. That's the way we're programmed. But if you're just sitting down at a dead stop and you see this mountain of tasks and things and issues and overwhelm, what that does is you don't want to climb the mountain. What I'm saying is just take a step.
Goodness. I've got I'm over here taking notes as you're talking, like getting ideas and things. And my wife may or may not appreciate the positivity that I'm going to bring after this day is over, but I'm going to have it. I'm going to bring it. If someone wants to connect with you, we're coming close on our time. If someone wants to connect with you, learn more about the work you're doing, what's the best way to do that?
So they can find me at arringtoncoaching.com. And you can also find me at arringtontraining.com. And I'm on social, primarily LinkedIn, almost every day. So if you reach out to me on LinkedIn, what you can do there is say you were on the HR summer school and I heard you there, because I don't accept every LinkedIn request. But if you say you're on HR summer school, I'll accept it. No questions asked. And that's another great way to connect. And I put up a lot of solid leadership content pretty much daily, videos and things of that nature.
Awesome. One last thing. Speaking of that, the content piece, you had told me before we got started here that you had something special for the people that are registered for HR Summer School. You want to share that really quick?
I've got 2 things actually. So I forgot to even tell you about one of them.
So
yeah, that's what I do. So one is the Momentum Leadership Community. So this is absolutely free for right now. And you email me or you connect with me on LinkedIn and say, David, I want to get in the Momentum Leadership Community. I will put you in. It's absolutely free right now. It's generally a paid service, right? But it's free right now because of everything that's going on. Second, I am making my promotable course, the course that goes along with this book, that is generally $397. Because you're attending HR Summer School, I'm offering it for $27 until Monday or Tuesday. So get in there as quickly as possible. You can find that on arringtontraining.com, arringtontraining.com, and you'll see promotable, becoming promotable as a course there. And you'll see it's $397. We're selling for $397, but for you guys, and because of everything that's going on, we're going to offer it for $27 for a very limited time. So jump in and grab it while you can.
Awesome. We'll make sure and get that link in the comments here so people can check that out. David, sir, I really appreciate your time, the work you're doing, supporting the community in so many ways. It does not go unnoticed. I appreciate you, sir.
I appreciate it, Ben. And thanks again for having me on HR Summer School. This is an awesome experience. I'm just thrilled to be a part of it.
That's wonderful. To everybody else, I hope you enjoyed this and you're feeling more positive as a result. I know that I am. So thank you very much. Stay tuned for more HR Summer School coming right up. All right. That was so fun watching the conversations there, watching the comments and everything. We are all more inspired. David, thank you so much, sir, for sharing with us. We appreciate you very much. We are going to take a break. We're taking an intermission a little bit early today.
because we had some issues with Sarah's content this morning. No worries. We will take a break. Intermission. And again, as I warned you this morning, if you have not been here, if you have, you're expecting this thing to cut off in about 10 minutes, and that's what it should do. When this video cuts off, take a look at the event page on LinkedIn, HR Summer School, that event page, and you can look there and you can find the new stream as soon as it starts. We'll start it very quickly after this one cuts off. So you can just leave this enough if you like to, or go to that event page and refresh. As soon as this one's done, that new one will show up there. So you can take a break. You can play some trivia. Colin is usually here in the chat. If you want to reach out to him, I'll make sure and tag his name really quick. Colin is on the team over there at Water Cooler Trivia, and he's the trivia nerd that put all this together. So and actually, there's his name on the screen. Forgot. So you can reach out to him if you have a question, you want to get in there, and you have any trouble, he can help you out. I'm going to take a break. Thank you, everybody.